Brought to you by...
In 1978, John Carpenter delivered us a look into the nightmares associated with random acts of violence by giving birth to The Shape. In the years that followed, other filmmakers took the bones of what he and Deborah Hill created and drove it into the ground, with pointless sequels, needless character changes, and an elevation of blood and gore that bastardized the very nature of what made the original concept so impactful. In 2018, David Gordon Green rewrote history by going back to the essence of what made Halloween so prolific, at least in some ways, and dared to throw away all the fluff that had been added throughout the franchise in order to return to what made the icon of Michael Myers so terrifying to begin with. When we were first introduced to Michael Myers, he was nothing more than The Shape, an empty, emotionless slate that stalked the streets of Haddonfield, Illinois, one Halloween night. This is where David Gordon Green aimed to bring us back to with his 2018 reboot. The idea was to dial back the motivations behind the iconic killer by stripping them away completely, and leaving us with that core concept of not knowing or understanding why he does what he does. But he also did us one better. With Halloween 2018, he took the opportunity to focus attention on our characters, the damage that has been done to each of them, and the impact that Michael's actions have left upon the entire community of Haddonfield. His legacy has stained not just Laurie Strode, but each generation of her family in the years since. In this first film, we witness the strained relationship between her and her daughter, and even her granddaughter. People speak of that night in 1978 as a ghost story, even sweeping its relevance under the rug, as we do with so many tragedies of the past today. With the follow-up, Green expands this legacy of pain even farther, by showing us how much the pain of it still bleeds not only into Laurie and her family, but into the community itself. We open this second installment in David Gordon Green's trilogy at the exact moment where the last film left off. Laurie's house burns in the night, the darkness cut by the shrieking of sirens as fire trucks race to the scene, and Laurie cries out for them to let it burn. No, let it burn! As we all assumed in 2018, Michael still lives, escaping the flames in brutal fashion. This was the perfect place to pick up the story. Just as the original Halloween 2 did in 1981, the film continues the rampage of Halloween night in spectacular fashion, as Michael carves a bloody path through Haddonfield with no real rhyme or reason, no direction or focus to his rampage. This is in part the beauty of Green's take on the material. Much of the story hangs on the notion of misunderstanding, however, not in the traditional sense. Unlike the direction that the original franchise chose to take, Michael is not looking for anyone. Out of fear, Laurie just assumes that he's coming for her, but at every turn he demonstrates that this is not the case. In fact, the only reason he pursued her family at all is because others intervened and placed them in his path, a fact that is briefly addressed in the follow-up. The film chooses to give us glimpses back into 1978, moments during when the original film took place that we did not get to see in Carpenter's original vision. These flashbacks take the time to pay extreme attention to detail. It recreates sets, costumes, off-screen details like the dead dog in the Myers house, and even providing a look at the bully Lonnie that the original didn't, showing that he himself was a victim of bullying, which is why he used to bully Tommy Doyle, perpetuating the cycle of torment that he himself is stuck in. This film features a host of other returning characters from the original Halloween film, including Tommy Doyle himself, played here by the always awesome Anthony Michael Hall. Lindsay Wallace comes back, played by the original actress in the seminal film. Sheriff Lee Brackett, also played by the original actor, who has now been demoted to a security guard at the hospital, and Dr. Loomis's nurse, Marion Crane, who all joined Laurie Strode for this second outing. For some reason, the nurse just hangs out with all these other characters on Halloween, despite never having any prior connection to any of them that we know of, and would honestly have no real reason to know any of them. I suppose that we can just assume that they all met sometime in the last 40 years as a result of being touched by Michael's original Rampage. John Carpenter himself and his sons return to the franchise once again here to recreate a new rendition of his original score, capturing that perfect magic that his original film was so infamous for, while also evolving its most memorable rhythms into a more brutal and horrifying soundscape. The soundtracks to these new films are among some of the most notable synthwave soundtracks that I have heard in horror films in recent years. And honestly, I feel like that's an undeniable fact in a world where most films are made with such cookie-cutter music. Now, something that I have to talk about in this one is the inclusion of not Donald Pleasance. I personally wish they hadn't shown another actor portraying the iconic role of Loomis. Even in the brief few moments of a flashback, I think it would have been better if they didn't show him, but maybe we heard his voice outside the house, or something along those lines. I'm not exactly mad that we saw him, but it just feels wrong to see another man step into those iconic shoes. No one else can play Loomis but Donald Pleasance, as proved by Malcolm McDowell in Rob Zombie's Psychobilly remake. Not that I hated McDowell's performance, but it's never gonna be the same. I do, however, appreciate the restraint that they used with him. They didn't keep him on screen for too long, and made sure to be very tasteful. The element of this film that I enjoyed the most was its focus on the unknown. This film begins to explore the idea of Michael always staring out at his sister Judith's window, always returning to that spot, looking out into the emptiness. But for what reason? What does he see out there in the darkness? What is out there calling to him, urging him to kill? We will likely never know, but it's a fun idea to explore. They do constantly make the decision to remind us that it has been 40 years since the original film.
Infected your family, he's infected my family with grief and fear for 40 years.
Over.
Because 40 years ago when I was a kid.
And over.
40 years ago!
And over.
I remember him from 40 years ago.
So many times, even in back-to-back scenes, which can get incredibly annoying. Why do they think that we need to constantly be reminded how fucking long it's been? Other than that, some audiences are fucking brain dead from spending countless hours of their lives glued to their fucking phone screens, or that constant reminder of what will always be a far superior film. You know, the one that started this whole fucking nightmare scenario in the first place? That one that Carpenter never wanted to have any fucking sequels to begin with? Listen to me sounding like I hated this film or something, when the fact is, that couldn't be farther from the truth. I actually quite enjoy these new films. There is also the biggest thing that people seem to harp on with this one, the whole evil dies tonight thing.
Evil dies tonight.
40 years. He's gonna die tonight.
We need to stop him tonight. Michael Myers will be executed tonight. Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight.
But now it needs to die.
Needs to die.
I fully admit that this film has these characters repeating this same fucking line over and over to the point of absurdity. However, Have you ever really watched an angry mob at work? They always inevitably formulate around a word or phrase that symbolize what drives them, formulating it into a sort of ritualistic chant that they carry with them throughout their rampage. So, as you can tell, I don't think this is as stupid as a lot of people are making it out to be. As with the first entry into this new trilogy, the kill scenes continue to explore the brutality of Michael's killing spree, as he offs each character in horrific fashion. We're talking brutally realistic hack and slash moments that give films like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street a run for their money. That's something else I appreciate quite a bit about these new films. There is no attempt to go extremely over the top with the deaths. Everything is fairly simple, but brutal in a realistic way. The film creates a strange atmosphere with each passing moment that the plot progresses. This foreboding and unending looming dread. With each frame that we move through, every shadow that shrouds a dark room or corner, the fear that infects the residents of Haddonfield seeps its way into us as well, and it stands with us throughout this night of horror. This film also carries forward with its themes of nostalgia, reminding us of the films that preceded it and its moments of comedy, like the older couple playing with a cheap toy drone in their living room. Like I said before, it also doesn't hold back on the violence. As we watch Michael brutally rampage through the shadows of Haddonfield once again, dispatching citizens harshly and without mercy or reason. One of my favorite moments being when the older wife lays bleeding out from her wounds, watching Michael stab various knives into the body of her husband, almost testing out each one before finding the one that he wants. But there feels like there's more to this one than just reminding us of the past. Here we focus even more than the last film on how trauma unites those affected. In most circumstances, victims of shared trauma would move on, build lives of their own. However, sometimes victims will unite, build bonds together, share their understanding and experiences, and take it upon themselves to be the reminders of what should never be forgotten: how fear unites. The shared fear of a community, bringing those who feel its infectious roots burrowing within, will bind together, forming a collective rage, fear, pain, a mob that can cause more damage than the very thing that originated their fear. It infects them like a cancer, causes them to lose their minds, making everyone just as insane as he is. But it also does one better. It forces its characters to face the monsters that they are becoming, to stare into their fear and realize what it's doing to them. In so many ways, the theme that this film even makes attempts to explore and reflect in the very real situations that our reality is now living through. The depth in which our society is sinking further towards, and that may be more terrifying than anything else. So far, I feel that David Gordon Green's approach to these Halloween films is closer to the threads that Carpenter left dangling in the wake of his original masterpiece than any who have come before. It's not about Michael's origins, a thorn cult, or a need to sever the ties of lineage. It's about that great unknown, and the fear that grows within as a result of its unanswered questions. This episode of ETF is sponsored by Movie Palette. If you are looking for incredible movie-related art to adorn your walls, look no further than the only piece of movie-related art that celebrates the color palette of your favorite films. And thanks to our partnership with Movie Palette, you can get yourself 15% off your purchase by using promo code EMBRACE15 at checkout. So head on over to moviepalette.com and get your palette today. Unfortunately, this year has hit a lot of setbacks for the channel. We've had to hold off on our bigger plans and even release a lot less content than we normally would. My biggest sacrifice being that I wasn't able to do a bigger Halloween event this year, the way I have tried to for the last several years. But I wanted to bring you guys something for the season, and what better way than by finishing off the Halloween franchise. Hopefully next year we can get things back to a more normal pace, or at least normal by my standards. I hope you all enjoyed this take on Halloween Kills. Stay tuned for my follow-up on Halloween Ends, which I'll hopefully get out before Halloween. If you like this video and you want to see more content like this, consider supporting the channel over on Patreon. I'm working on trying to finally bring you guys some fun, exclusive content over there. So show us some support and help me turn this into what I do full time. I'd love to be able to bring you more content than ever before. Until next time, stay safe, and thanks for watching.